Hi, my name is Singh, and I'm broadcasting from New Jersey on behalf of Stanford Online High School students from across the globe. So, hello world. With us here today is Justin Somaini, the Chief Security Officer at SAP. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So the first question is, SAP is the world's third largest company in terms of software, only after Microsoft and Oracle. However, because it's not a consumer company, many people don't hear of it in day-to-day conversations. So can you elaborate in general for the general public what the SAP even does and what types of clients it has?
Certainly. SAP really does two main things: analytics, analyzing data for our large companies, and we create mission-critical applications that run the largest companies and organizations around the globe. So effectively, the brain and logic on dealing with financial systems, HR systems, business processes of any type of industry or company or organization around the globe generally runs SAP to run their entire business.
And so I was reading in the news, S/4HANA is playing a critical role in a lot of companies. It's a new product you have. It was a really interesting quote by, I think it's JB Bilray, the chairman, president, and CEO of the Hershey's, and he talked about how they're using your new software to influence their supply chain. So what makes S/4HANA so attractive to businesses?
So S/4HANA really provides that in-memory real-time analytics that enables companies to consume massive amounts of data, analyze it in real time to provide business intelligence that could very well have taken weeks, if not months, on legacy systems. And of course, that's very desperate of a capability when you look at how competitive companies and organizations are nowadays. And so it's really been an interesting boon for a lot of companies to go to that type of model.
And I heard that the company, SAP, plans to spend $2.2 billion in the Internet of Things by 2020. So what do you see as the future of that industry, and how will that play a larger role in our lives? And is it a transition from what SAP is currently doing related to Internet of Things, or is it a new marketplace, or can you expand a little bit on that?
Certainly. So when you look at Internet of Things, it's really the allowance of any device, whether it's your television, your phone, your light, your refrigerator, to become network aware and to be able to communicate to other devices for better services. And we see this in the consumer space with actually watches and phones, and we get into TVs now being able to provide services such as Netflix and others right off of the TV itself. But when we look at really infrastructure that's really going to change our lives on how a car can interact with other cars to understand what the road looks like or how to best drive, or we see this in Tesla in a lot of areas within the device itself in the car, how intelligent it's becoming. It's those services, those capabilities that are really exciting and really enabling all of us to transition, and SAP is really about enabling businesses to operate more effectively, more efficiently. So this is just yet another transformation wave that we're having in the industry, and SAP is really being a part of it to really service all of our customers. And of course, for me, how we secure that becomes very, very important, especially when we talk about airplanes, nuclear reactors, cars talking to each other, which can really bring in a significant amount of concern around safety.
Yeah, a lot of those things have been in the news recently, especially yesterday during the debate nuclear. And I think the biggest threat might not be SAP security. Just kidding. So, is there a typical use case of your work? So, what will it be? What is necessarily for our audience who might not know? Is it, do you make sure the code is robust and that hackers can't get into it? So what's a typical use that you might look into on your day-to-day job?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we in security think about the problems, or more importantly, what could go wrong, and we're really exciting to really hang out with in a lot of parties, because we talk about all the problems that could exist in the world as opposed to fun, great things that exist. So really, we in the beginning, we think about what problems have occurred historically that we can learn from, what are potential problems that we've never really thought about before, industry best practices, et cetera, to make sure that the architecture of whatever we build has a sound foundation, that the code that is developed for that service and product is done well. And of course, when you talk about building something nowadays, whether it's an app for your phone or a massive cloud service, there's a lot of third parties in that as well. So using third-party applications and vendors. So dealing with them and relating with them to create a secure standard on whatever it is being developed is also a significant component of what my team does.
So what is probably on most people's minds nowadays related to security is just recently Yahoo announced a 500 million people hack on passwords, and it seems every other day there's a new breach that happens. Does SAP offer products to prevent that from happening, or are those not typical things that you guys deal with?
Yeah, when we think about security and SAP, obviously we're not a security company, but I do feel that we're in the business of protecting our customers' business, especially with our products and platforms. So first and foremost, whatever we build, we really want to make sure is vulnerability free. Second, it has the capabilities of adding security features and functionalities that they might want to consume, depending upon their environment and how they operate. And probably lastly, that we ingest into the security ecosystem. So maybe they're running a logging system or a vulnerability scanner that obviously we don't create. We want to make sure that we integrate with those solutions so they really can unlock the value. Ultimately, that data that malicious individuals are going after, whether it's financially motivated or otherwise, is existing on SAP systems. And so how we harden that environment becomes very, very important for that customer's protection.
And it seems like an exciting field of work to talk about cybersecurity, because most of our audience is high schoolers. How do you think that people who are interested in the type of work you do prepare for, whether in taking certain classes in school or college or majoring in a certain degree? How did you get into this whole field? And do you think that looking back, would you have done something different to, better aim yourself for the security type of position that you're in? Because I noticed you've been this type of chief information security officer in other companies too. So you obviously been successful. Can you give advice for this current students?
Absolutely. Actually, when I went to college, I was a finance major. I was going to be a stockbroker. Go where the money is, effectively was a concept. But I grew up in a military environment. I lived in very contentious spaces around the globe. And so that security structure and how I think and what is important to me, safety, has always been there. And so when I had some co-ops at Drexel, kind of fell into the security industry, which was just growing at that time or in the beginning, and fell in love with it. And so I was an attack and penetration expert at Price Waterhouse when I started my career, which is very exciting, a lot of fun to do, and then continued on and actually solving the problems versus breaking into them. And so if I was going to give advice to people coming into the industry, it's actually much, much, much more boring than what you see on TV and the news. But having said that, it's very exciting. It's constantly changing. Getting involved with some of the Price Waterhouse, KPMGs is a great introductory experience. Working for some of the consulting agencies is probably a great way to get into it. But more importantly, there's a lot of resources online that really can help grow, and a lot of people that are willing to be open and have a conversation. The industry is very social in that way.
And especially the movie Snowden just it came out not too long ago, so I guess it's certainly been a hot topic in our society, security, and because it plays such an important role in our lives. And I think that's something that people don't necessarily think about, whether it's like, for example, credit card in businesses or like Chase or American Express or even banks. The consumer doesn't think about the underpinnings of how it all stays secure. It's only I think that's why people don't necessarily hear of SAP in day-to-day situation, because it's not directly related to people. It's plays a huge indirect role.
Absolutely. When we look at how businesses relate to each other and how they interact behind the scenes to provide a service to a consumer, it's very deep, very intricate. And so that connectivity is very important to secure and harden, even if the outset of it, that end user consumer service is one small thing. There's this massive infrastructure that's usually behind the scenes assisting it.
So what was your high school experience like? Did you, looking back, not necessarily for someone who wants to go into security, but just in general, would you have done something differently? Because we're looking for advice or what your message is to the current generation. That way, hopefully they can take away something from this interview.
Yeah, I mean, my advice is security is one of those industries I think has been with us for quite a long time in history. Is not going anywhere. This shift or this use of technology in the security concept in our everyday lives has not only changed us for the better, but it's also created some significant concerns in how we manage it. And so for those of you that are very, very interested in the topic of security or cybersecurity, I could only encourage you more so to kind of get involved. There are local organizations. There are actually this month is October, which is the National Cybersecurity Month awareness for the US, and actually it exists in Europe as well. And so these events and these organizations really drive security into high schools, middle schools, companies, and organizations. So there's a lot of capabilities to participate and learn and grow and network today more than when I started. And so participating, I would absolutely encourage it. It is exciting. It is a very small industry, so it's very familiar in a lot of ways. And honestly, you get to deal with things that very few have an opportunity to make a significant impact in our future.
So now moving on to our fun segment, what's the favorite thing to do in your free time?
Oh boy, you're going to catch me on this one. It changes. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Diablo 3 and getting my character up to speed the way it should be. Or I'm hanging out with my kids. I watch a lot of movies. I love movies quite a bit. And then if I get a chance, I usually am out with friends doing various things.
Have you played Pokemon Go? Is that a particular hobby or no?
I played with it for like a couple of days, and then it required me to get outside and do stuff. So I had a problem. It kind of limited me a bit.
What's your favorite site or magazine to read?
Oh my God, I couldn't even tell you the last time I read a magazine, but I do a lot of reading online. So a lot of the feeds that I get from on the business side, I'll read Reuters, I'll read Bloomberg, just for normal business sense. I read CPU a lot. I love CPU in regards to the technical underbellies and a lot of new technologies that are out there. And of course, in the security industry, you've got dark reading, CISO magazine, SC magazine, but usually I consume them all online.
If you won $10 million in a lottery, what would you do with the money, except for donating it?
Let's see. A part of it would go to my kids to pay for college. I live in San Francisco, so I'd probably buy a house. That would probably take about $10 million. I would probably use a chunk of it to really just travel around the world for 1 year to some of the locations I've never been to before. Love traveling, love getting out there and meeting new people. And probably lastly, there would be a fair amount of donations to children's charities.
Are there any in particular that you enjoy or would like to contribute to?
I contribute to St. Jude's every year, and then there's the Cancer Institute for Children in Philadelphia, and there's a couple of others in regards to underprivileged kids.
If you could trade lives with any person for an entire day, who would it be?
Well, my parents, because they're retired. It would be interesting to spend 1 day, not more than a day, with Obama, just to see what it's like to be president. it would be interesting to trade jobs with Zuckerberg more for Facebook. Some of their technology is pretty awesome that they're coming out with, and having that big of an impact on so many lives has got to be very impressive. And I'm sure there's some others, but that's really off the top of my head.
Especially a lot of their artificial intelligence stuff is mind-blowing. Have you had the chance to meet him? He seems like such an awesome person.
I haven't. I haven't had the pleasure. I know a lot of people over at Facebook, but I have not met Zuckerberg yet.
Would you rather have one wish granted today or 3 in 10 years?
3 in 10 years.
Would you rather be able to stop time or fly?
Fly. Well, it depends on how fast can I fly. Can I fly like Superman, or am I going really, really slow?
Commercial jet.
That's up in the air. I'm going to have to go with stop time then.
And our last question, would you rather win an Olympic medal or an Academy Award?
Oh, Academy Award, hands down. Because no one would ever believe that I could do anything athletic to win an Olympic medal.
So that's the end of our interview. We'd like to thank Mr. Somaini for graciously sparing his time here at Pixel Talk and inspiring, hopefully, not only the Stanford OHS community, but children around the US and perhaps even around the world.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. Thank you very much.